Okay, I'm ready to start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey everyone. Welcome to Weekly Wed here at Business School of AI. Today we have a really awesome speaker. Her name is Rebecca Lee. She is a multimodal Gen AI transformation leader. Uh, we are super excited to have her here and speak to us today about everything she knows about building quality products. And also, before we get started, I just would like to share uh, something for IoT Day. Last week, we announced speakers for IoT Day. And today we have the schedule. I'm just going to show you guys that really quickly. Um, Give me one second. And we have the schedule here that I'm going to show for Rebecca. I'm going to take over the Zoom for like 1 second. And I'm going to replace this so I could show our IoT Day. Um, Live schedule next week for all the speakers. Um, it is really cool. We have a lot of amazing women lined up. Um, we have three regional panels for Africa, Europe, Southeast Asia at 9 a.m. local time for her. So it would be like noon for me here in New York. Followed by like an 8-hour live stream that coincides with our weekly WED on April 9th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's really exciting. All the women here, it's like 24 hours of 24 brilliant women, just like Rebecca here today. And it is like a lot of learning, a lot of great panels, and all things not just AI, but what topics that they're also interested in regarding technology. And so I'm excited for that. And then Rebecca, please go back to introducing yourself. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Rebecca Lee, and I have been kind of like starting working on the Gen AI type of like the tech transfer and related research and production deployment, those kind of stuff around. I would say like around 3 years ago. So it's when before Gen AI things got really hot and the stuff, and I was like in a very early stage and figuring out what are the Gen AI features that are going to ship to the market, etc. So let me give a brief introduction of myself. So I know that a lot of like the audience in today's in today's meetings are probably product management or business or maybe part of like the our software engineer or machine learning background. So my background is actually very like I would say like technology wise. I host a PhD degree in University of Houston where I kind of like have my thesis was around like biological image processing and data analysis, etc. So during my PhD of the time, I was like was thinking about whether I would like to delve in more in the academic field or into the industry field. Um, and then I was very lucky that I did actually three internships during my PhD. And first internships is in National Institute of Health, where I was working on some of the, development software tools for biologists doing the image analysis, etc. And then also, I interned in like self-driving car company doing some quantization project and also interned in like oil and gas field and thinking about using computer vision technology to use on detecting the seismic data for oil and gas drilling, etc. So in my early stage of the career, I kind of from those industrial experience, I know that what I like the most is using the technology to solve the real problem and then making the advanced technology to really change people's mind rather than just like on the methodology part and what is like the more fancy method, but we're not sure whether the problem is exactly what will change people's life the most. So I summarize here that my professional domains are covered in graphic design, medical imaging, autonomous driving car, and oil and gas, etc. So around 4 years ago, I was like joined Adobe for the first 2 years. For the first 2 years, I was in their research department, and then around like 2.5 years ago, I was one of the earliest co-founder for Adobe's first GenAI platform called Firefly. So that is like the I would say the most popular commercial-based image and video generation toolbox in the whole world. And it actually won the 2023 Times Best AI invention in the whole year or something like that. So I was being very honored to being one of the earliest member where at the beginning when we were working on this project, only around 10 people, 10 research people working on this. And then I was like serving as a role to expand the contributor from 10 people to 100 people over just like the 3 months of the time, and then expanding, like making this project and shaping the direction of this project from just like a exploration prototyping to a world well known successful business project. And now it's actually have been generated, I think, more than 15 billions of the images in the worldwide. um, and I am currently taking a break from my previous role, and actually I'm taking a longer break to thinking about what I want to do next. And I recently kind of like accept the my next role at Leonardo. The AI is also just recently acquired by Canva. I will be joining their teams to leading the part for the AI research management field, also working on graphic design, etc. So here's like basic this the background of myself, and just would like to share that like today's everything I'm going to talk about something like the quality GenAI stuff. It is like all generated from the public available materials and with some reflections of my personal experience, and it's not associated with any of my affiliation in any past or current or future employee. So we just want to have this chance to do something giving back to the community and something like public shareable and like some of like practical experience that can be transferable to a lot of cases where I know a lot of our audience is interested in how to build a successful GenAI product. Um, and also would like to say like other than I know like in the GenAI field, a lot of things are LLM based, just language based. And but my background, as you can see, like is more actually in the image and vision side. So all of the examples I'm going to give today will be focused on multimodal model, something combination with the image, language and video, etc. Um, and so also appreciate Sudha to kind of like give me a little bit guidelines of what the audience will be interesting to talk about. So I'm going to go over like four aspects. So first we're going to talk about what is like quality means in the GenAI context, especially in the GenAI field rather than other kind of like the other traditional software features where we have like a very obvious ground truths and we know what is our direction are. But for all of the GenAI or majority of the GenAI technology, we don't know what is defined by good or not. So it's like very intriguing and ambiguous in this field. So how to define a good quality and what are the aspects of the quality? That's the part I'm going to delve into deep. And then the second part, I'm going to share like how to put the concept of trust, safety, and scalability in mind in the whole process of like developing a Gen AI product in its whole life cycle. And and then the third part, I'm going to touch a little bit base of, the gap between some of the current limitation about like the wild, some like academic based quality metric versus the actual metrics that can be used for like telling how the user satisfaction is about the real production, and then what are some of the technology of the method we can to reduce those type of gap. And then the last part, I'm going to mention a little bit some of the something like in the future, maybe the technology in this might not be mature right now, and what is like the next generation of the quality control pipeline that can be further improve, like the speed, time to market rate, etc. And let me see if there are any specific questions right now before I delve into the part. Okay. So I understand the role within okay, I think Sudha's mentioned, I'm curious to understand the role within large engineering teams on managing quality control pipelines as product scales. Yeah, I will try to touch base on those kind of aspects. I think I have some slides that are mentioning a little bit on that. just also feel free to raise your any people has questions and raise your hands like in the middle of the presentation if you find resonate or something the part I want to delve into deep. If I'm happy to share if anything like not violating the NDA and stuff, not as long as it's not mentioned about specific company or product, I'm happy to share. Um, okay, so what is the definition or what is like the quality means in the GenAI context? As we are saying that's like GenAI features, we are creating something new and creating something from unknown. And so nobody know like, we don't have a ground truth to saying that, okay, this output is should be matched exactly 100% with something. So that is why like the quality in GenAI is go beyond accuracy and it will not only just about how good the models how good the outputs are but also includes like the readability and interpretability and appropriateness of the response, something like we want to make the outputs to be diverse and be creative and also sometimes wanted to be able to really interpret it or really reflects the input of the prompt or like instructions the something like that. And then the other part is like the quality need to adapt to the user expectation. And when the user are going to change their prompts or expectations and or different, just like slightly different project, slightly different features, and the output of the quality or the measurement metrics of the quality will going to be matters or different a lot depends on what the user wants. So that is to say like something like when we are doing like simple classification or object detection problem, we can always use the same metrics to do to answer a lot of questions. But in this case is if the user asking slightly different aspect, and then we will need to change our quality measurements in different way. So that is also bring a lot of like challenges that have to be adapt with like a lot of variation of the user requests, etc. And in the like in general the aspects of quality can divide it into three different aspects. So the one part is relevant to the user intent, basically to measure that how good the output is reflects what the user wants. And the other part, second and third part is more like the AI safety aspects. Is like the first is about harm, so we need to making sure that the output generation is the absence of the harmful content, and the other part is like the fairness and bias. We want to making sure that the outputs will put the AI ethical concern into like their generation, so people would not feeling they're getting marginalized and something like that. So I would say like the first part is more in like academic or something that's like easy to quantifiable. But for the second and the third part, for harm and bias aspect, you will need a lot of combination of both technology and like the society definition of what is mean by harm and what is mean by bias. And I will actually go into some details and examples in all three aspects. So before we doing that, I would like to kind of like asking the audience some questions like, so this is like a image that are generated by GenAI. And I want to asking the audience like, what do you think from this image? Okay, sorry about that. So I actually got a lot of inspiration from this image, like what are the important aspects or why the putting the trust, safety, and scalability in mind for designing Gen AI product development life cycle is so important. Um, so as you can see, that's like from this image, you can see that there is like a dark ocean over here. So that is means like it kind of describe our Gen AI model or the product development field. It is a new area and actually, especially for I would say like the product development side, there is not a very easy way to, or no one knows what is like the golden standard of the metrics to telling whether the product is going to success or not. So it is all ambiguous, and we are all in this new field and trying to find something, find the order or find the direction in this like very big ambiguity. Exactly, yeah. This is like the ocean at night, and we don't know what is going to happen in the front. And then we can see like this is a cruise ship where we have this normally defining big teams that we are working on Gen AI developments, and the team can, can combine with, the engineers and product management and product manager and project manager, etc. So we're all in the same boat and we are all, working together in this like one group. And the so that's kind of also described as like the diverse of the group, and we have like a large cargo in our boats, and sometimes we have the financial concern, and we need to making sure that we got enough fuel, something like we have enough GPU and money to being as like the engine for our ship. And also as you can see, like for a ship, yeah, it is very hard to do the navigation. And in order to do the navigation, we need to find a way to tell us what is the direction of us to go. So the destination of the land is something like, okay, we know that the real world user and the business needs in somewhere in the front, and that is our destination. We want to develop the successful product to lead our whole cruise ship to go to that direction. And so as you can see here, we have like a beacon of the light, and that is the only way where we can see what is happening in the front. And I would like to use a quality evaluation as the beacon of light, because this is kind of like tools and a method help us to get a little bit clearer of the vision in the front. But we also have to be realized that this is a completely dark ocean, as like there's no way we can really un like unravel every single part of the part. And like for those icebergers, and you can see that sometimes big and sometimes small, and these are describing our obstacles, something like the ethical and Harman bias risk and hallucinations and the drifting and misuse and this kind of stuff. And we can only use our beacons of light, that is like our quality evaluation toolbox, to tell us that like whether of those problems to avoid. Something like, the Harman bias issue, like those obstacles, if we don't use our light to actually see that those things could be obstacle for our trip, and sometimes it might cause really, really severe outcome. Some good example happened before. I know, like, a lot of there like some of the I would say like early stage of the GPT toolbox, they are the goal, some of them are described or designed to help the scientists to do some literature review or like summary study, etc. But in the end, it generates very harmful outcome, and then it causes like very bad society effect. So they have to shut down that project in very short amount of time. So that is to say like why those icebergers, and maybe when we're doing the model development, is like doesn't feel like it's very big, but we really need to taking very good care of those. Because if not, it will be really, really, may cause the whole ship to collapse, just like Titanic, etc. Yeah. So here just like want to give everyone some idea that why it is important to put the quality control into our mind. And then we need to put like, building trusting, safety and scalability of the solutions for every steps of the kind of like the AI production development. As I promised, and we're going to go into detail about more example of what are we mean by relevance, quality, harm, and bias. So we will start with like relevance part. This is an example where if like we want to kind of like evaluate the relevance or the quality of this output, assuming that we're giving the input like the user will put like sunsets over a Tokyo skyline with recognizable landmarks, and we are to give a more detailed example, we not only have the user input for just this one prompt, but also a user conditioned style reference input. So we want to generate an image, something like this, with this reference of the style, something looking like that. And then this is like the examples of the output. We're not giving, not necessarily mention specific model, but just like give some open source like models as example. So this is the output we're doing. And in general, how we are evaluating this is by we kind of like give those outputs to either human or machine, or ask them to give a score of whether these outputs reflect good enough for the user inputs. So here is just like very naive example is that even this part is actually generated by GPT by ChatGPT. Something like we can normally we want to doing like examine the aspect for something the user satisfactory and whether like the some feature specific metrics like the style match and like the prompt alignment, which is like whether the image reflects the input of the prompts and color and lighting. And this is more like aesthetic part of the consideration and scene composition, landmark accuracy, etc. So this is kind of like giving you an overview of like if we want to do image by image or just like sample by sample evaluation, we normally need to design a list of those metrics. Sometimes it can be 50 or 100 of the metrics, and we want to observe the performance of the output. And I would like to say, like for this apex, there are a lot of like some caveats or the importance of how to design good metrics for this. Something like we need to define those criteria that are accurately reflect the user satisfaction rate, and also we need to making sure it maintain a good consistency because the human judgment and preference are drifting over time. So what do you mean by drifting? It's something like if a fixed group of user are seeing like the similar image at the same time when give an example like there are always give the evaluation score for 1 star to 5 star, but if they have been seeing more and more good quality of the outputs and they're it's like it's human nature that their criteria for good will be higher, so that will be cause that the user preference drifting that's like in the future when it will be harder to get more 5 star of the outputs and you will probably see more and more even if the same model quality same output quality you can see like their performance score getting lower, but now that actually means that their performance is getting degradation. So, and the other last aspect is like we need to balance the object metrics with some subjective and context dependent feedback because there are some of the things that like very objective, like okay, if like the compositions is great or if it reflects good on the a prompt input, etc. But there are a lot of like subjective parts, something like whether the style is good, whether their aesthetic is good, and that is actually case by case. It's also biased a lot by people's backgrounds and stuff. Some of the solution can doing that is by further defining or separate the user group into different persona, something like we for like the multimodal evaluations and sometimes we will have amateur group and they will have one specific criteria and professional group and they will have a more standard more high priorities of the or more strict requirement for what is definition for good. Yeah, so I put like a summarize over my like personal, summarize over here. Relevance is like the importance of relevance evaluation is the most important. We give it a 5 star. And the difficulties of that is so far it is like 3 because it's still measurable and it's like very well defined. I think in the product development field, it is like the technology difficulty is only one aspect, but the certainty and predictable and reliable of the metrics is also very, very important. So to this aspect, like I would say like technology wise and the certainty wise of this type of metrics is actually not very difficult. Um, and then so we're going to give more example about the harm evaluations. So for the harm aspect, and it can be defined, like into a lot of aspect. I would not go into detail, something like violence and hate and nudity, self-harm, misinformation, etc. And then normally how we are observing the harm quality is by something like just give an example that we are kind of evaluating the performance of like model A, model 1, 2, and 3, and we want to kind of like get some understanding about like the harm rate for those prediction. And generally we will kind of like run it like few hundred or few thousands of the samples, and we will want to calculate those like rates of the harm. And it's also up to different like industry and what is that specific thresholds and what it is like claim that's whether it would be a pass line for a model. So it's happened in a lot in the industry that's like the harm is normally serve as like harm evaluation is served as a guardrail of the production development. So that is to say that's like sometimes no matter how good the relevance or the other quality aspects of a models are if their harm rate is higher than specific threshold, it will not going to ship. So that is like very, very critical for like doing the whole production cycle. That's like the guardrail of like the threshold for harm need to be kind of like very, very clearly defined. Um, there is,
So,
go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, we have a question here. Like in machine learning, you could get a confusion matrix. Is there a systematic way to measure harm for a Gen AI model? And that's from
Yeah.
Sudha.
Yeah, so I would say like measure the harm actually have a lot of way to doing that. So there are some, human based of method. There are also like some automatic based methods. So human based method is something like, normally we'll do it by generating some of the ambiguous inputs, either the prompts or image, something like that. And then we will ask a real human to evaluate that whether the harm like it is like cause controversy and is like should be not be able to accept, and that is like one way to measure it. And the other way, like for the automatic way, is there is a binary classifier is called non-safe for work, and that's a W classifier, and that is very widely used for either doing the classification for prompt and also NSW for image, like basically different modality will have its own binary classification. And also from my, I would say like the tendency for the industry is actually, there's a one caveat is that um, we should not use the same metrics to do the NSFW filtering in the production pipeline and do the evaluation at the same time because that is means cheating. Because we cannot use the same model to do the product development and the evaluation. So it's called NSFW, not safe for work, not safe for work. Yes, exactly. That's is NSFW. I'm typing in the chat box. It's called NSFW. So the more tendency in the industry is like they are not going to use the exact same model to do putting into the deployment into the production and the evaluation. And normally in the evaluation, it will be more sophisticated of the metrics. So what I know for like Anthropic, and they have like constitutional AI, and that is specifically designed to solve the sophisticated cases in a language space where the scenario we should say is not acceptable or cause some ethical controversy on that, and what are the cases that where could be accessible. So that is actually a second field that I might going to touch a little bit in the end of my presentation is like how to train some auto evaluator either for quality or harm and bias evaluation. Yes. And yeah, I think we touched base a little bit on that. So the challenging for the harm quality control is that how we can translate the evolving human politics and the social norm into a measurable evaluation metrics. So there is actually, even though there are some of the, the methods exist, existing in the industry academic field, but because of people's notion had been keep on evolving the time, so it is like even if we have this type of method, is always have to either reflect with a different policy or retraining with like new data set, etc. Yeah, and then the other part is like ensuring the safety filter remain robust and adversary prompt technique evolving. So basically that just means by especially when we're developing different features and our harm NSSW classifier will be different. So one example is that we sometimes have like foundational models where the goal is to generate like arbitrary outputs that's like the user wants. And there's also sometimes like customized based models that we are kind of want to fine tune on specific user inputs. And in those cases, because like the model training data set has changed and their harm evaluation metrics or criteria should also change accordingly. So that is to say like the definition for this like harm filtering or classification has to be like involving according to different user needs and different adversary prompts, like and also like different diversity of the feature that we're developing on. Yes, so that is why I would describe the harm quality control. I would give the importance of 4 star. It is the reason why it's not like 4 5 star is because the we the harm, as I said at the beginning, is only safe at the guardrail purpose. So as long as the it passes a specific threshold, and it shouldn't like put a slowdown into the model development, but it will only become important critical if something like the thresholds of the harm outputs is not meet the criteria. And the difficulty of here, I would give like not very high, is just because there are some like standardized evaluation metrics or filtering methods, something like NSW I just mentioned. Um, so, okay, yeah. And then the last aspect for the quality control, like with the AI ethical concern, I would describe it as like fairness. So here's an example of, like AI generated doctors. I generate also just from arbitrary, like vision image generation tool. So as you can see, like if we want to generate like four samples, and in this examples, we will see like three women over here, and then it's like also one like African Americans in this field. So these actually have very important social effect because something like you can imagine if a students want to pursuing for a doctor degree, and if they are seeing doctors in this field, like if there are a woman like future doctor, and then if she's seeing all the doctor are all men, and she might just feel left out and then not supported by this like environment, etc. So that is to say that's like the AI fairness or the distributions of different demographics is also something that could be a important issue for AI production development. And then the exact method of how we are quantifying this is by something doing some of like the collections for the do some stress tests about the output, something like write the same prompt generation a few thousand of times, and then see how the distribution in different people democratic, etc. And the critical part for how to put this fairness in our minds is like the first part is how to define the fairness across different contents. As you can see, like it's a straightforward. We want to maybe care about like the different gender, race, and skin color, etc. But maybe different people have different aspects. They might also want to have different fairness aspects across different culture and different like profession, etc. So it's always like endless list of how would this like different contents could include. And the other part is like is very lack of the ground truth data set. And there could be, very naive way we're saying that, okay, we just want to generate a generation of the distribution, just resonate or assemble for the whole world. And then we can something, like using the United Nations democratic distribution on that. But there could also be an ethical concern that's like maybe there are some like the feature development where we want not only just want to reflect the specific world, but also want to reflect what the future world will look like. So that is also like could be something like not it is completely not a just pure technology problem, or like the difficulty is not as like how to do the classification or detection of different democracy, but it's more in the ethical concern or the legal concern, and that's like whether a good distribution or a golden standard of fairness should be look like. I would say as for now, there's really no golden standards. There is no like good answer on that. And then the other part is something like the ambiguities in the prompts. Something like if we want to generate like a doctor's with beautiful dress, something like that. And then what is the beautiful definition? And also like case by case, it's very hard to see like whether like the different type of prompts can reflect the exact distribution where we want. And then the last aspect is like overcorrection risk. And one example is actually like when a few I would say like last year there is like one Google products, and they were doing some generation that's actually caused like the over bias issue, and that could cause some like PR issue for a specific project. So that is to say like for fairness, it is a very sensitive area, and either we didn't put enough consideration in fairness or put too much or overcorrection of fairness could all cause issue. So these type of things is I would say in like the practical experience, they really just need the whole teams for different products to have like good consensus, like from the leadership and also like um the engineer wise, and to really reach like a good alignment of what's the good expectation for buyers should look like. And so that's why I give the summary for the importance of fairness. I will give it a 3 star. It's real only because like this field is very ambiguous, and as compared to harm, it's um like if the target is not to get a very social justice of the production to the whole world. Normally, if you just want to focus on specific one or tiny aspect of the application, you probably don't need to put fairness in too much concern. But if you really want to be in the leading field of this industry, then like can put a little bit more effort on doing that. And then the difficulty of like getting fairness like golden standard is really, really high. As I mentioned, like it is not only a technology problem, it is more like a social and legal problem. Yes. And then to how we can next up, I'm going to talk a little bit about like how we want to scale up the putting the scalability concern into the Gen AI product development. So here's like example where this is like the image I got it from Google. This is like the general feature development cycle where we're going to start by requesting definition of the features, and we're going to design and then build, review, test, deployment, support, and feedback, etc. So in order for us to put quality into concern, what I describe is actually quality should be the parts that chain all of the different cycle. Something like when for a step for 1 to 2, when we define the project PRD, basically like the product's design, we need to put the expectation of like the quality criteria at the very first beginning, and also during the model like or software building and reviewing. And that's exactly the part where we need to do the pulse check and quality check in all different aspects. And in a different deployment, we need to observe that whether the quality has been degraded from the models to their pipeline integration side. And then the last part for the people we're getting user feedback aspect, we need to further seeing that whether these like the criteria or quality metrics are really reflect what the user is seeing. And so in the future, we can make some modification about the metrics to be further matched with what the user wants. And um I would like to, and like as I mentioned, like the critical part of that is to whether we can define a series of the metrics that's really match with what user wants. And since I came from like machine learning model background, I did a lot of like modeling and the data science work. So I just want to give some some intuition for like why a lot of like academic based metrics is not enough, where there is a very big gap about like academic metrics to the real metrics that can be used decision making of like product shaping. So I will not go into detail for this like the exact metrics. It's called like the Fitchett inception distance FID score is actually very widely used in doing evaluation for GAN models a few years ago, and then it's also has been using a lot for the Gen AI in like vision, image generation, etc. So the design of that is basically to measure the distance of the real, I would say, the ground truth distribution of the data to the generated outputs. So it's like doing this just simply, you can imagine like the comparing the contribution of two data sets, and it will like the one we will concern their mean and the variance. And if like their distance of their mean and variance for the two data sets is closer, and intuitively we were thinking that like that means the quality of the generated outputs is more aligned with the like the human with the ground truth. And so it sounds great, right? It sounds like okay, it should make some sense. But however, the drawback of this type of model or this type of matrix is that it only match with the ground truth data sets that we use for training the model. However, before we shipped the models into the production, we would never actually use the real distribution that's like what the user want. So that is to say, like we are just have very early. They can be only used at its early stage. We want to have approximate estimation of how distance our generated output to the ground truth. However, it will never be able to 100% or like the targets to match the actual user experience. And the other aspect is that it's not task awareness because it's only able to to describe the overall distance with another distribution. And all the other aspects, as we give the example before, something like if how good is it match with the style input and how good it match the prompt input, there's all no way to doing that. So that is also the parts that we cannot be able to estimate. And also the other part you can see that is only estimates their distribution size. Something like if we are say we generate like a data set for cat, and if even if like when the generated outputs always generates like cats with 6 legs, and is in human eyes is definitely not able to represent like a good distribution of the training of the ground truth data set. However, if in that score for the FID generates like a very I would say like synthetic or symbolic cats can actually have good high FID scores only because like their feature based pixel or their how would I say their feature based distributions is actually very close to the real cast distribution, but only those nuances can only be able to tell by specific text awareness, something like the accuracy of the components for reconstruction, etc. Yes, and the other part is definitely like not interpretable, and the other big part is like very sensitive to sampling and modeling noise. So that is to say like this scores, if there are some like small abnormal samples, it will matters to like the mean and variance distribution. So yeah, so I would not going to delve more detail in this type of distribution or this matrix, but here we can get a understanding that's like why it needs the separate efforts to define some criteria that actually match the user experience rather than just use like some academic base of the matrix that's cannot fit like the purpose for really have the good prediction of what's the satisfaction for user. Okay, yeah, and I am also going to delve into give a few three category of the type of evaluations or quality evaluations methods that are widely used, and some of them are early stage, some of them are future stage, and all of them can be done. I would say the first two ones can be done by human annotation, and the only the last part might be hard to doing by human. So the first I want to say like it would be like MLs, it would be like scoring and the classification type of stuff. So that is actually very widely used in a lot of cases where we are just need to guess like whether is this bias or not bias, or quality is good or not good. Something we give a score 1 to 5. 1 is bad, 5 is really good, etc. And to define something like that, since it's like have a very quantifiable way to measure it, so it can do it can be done either by human annotations, or we sometimes have cloud workers to do the scoring for us, or we can even train some ML models, classification models to automatically predict what the quality score will look like. And then the second part would be like rather than doing the absolute scoring, how we can do the A/B testing, like pairwise comparison. And those type of comparisons generally very widely used right before doing the model shaping. Before we want to launch a new model, like a version 3, something like before we want to replace the newer version of the model with the old version, we always have to do the A/B testing on a small group of like user group, and they need to tell them whether they will prefer the newer model rather than the old model. So for this point weight base of comparisons is actually it's better to do in the human base of the wise, and for like the for I would say for the difficulties of how to train like pairwise like a differentiator or ML model is actually really hard. It's only because like sometimes the difference of like older version and new version, they're like the difference is very nuanced. It's like only for capturing a large group of people and with very sharp eyes can actually tell the difference. And some ML models, they're very good at telling the some of the objective fields, something like if the quality really not bad, or if they're missing an important part of human finger, etc. But it's really quite not sensitive to tell like the contextual information, or especially the nuance of like the two different sets of the outputs. And then the last part, I would say a more advanced, something like we might be able to seeing in few years later is like the ML the multimodal vision question understanding model. So this is like the definition of that is like if we can rely on human to do the evaluation, then theoretically we can also have a LM model to do that. So how we're doing is by rather than asking human like how what's the problem of this like outputs, and we are instead asking the like a multimodal model to doing that, like tell me the artifact of this image and then tell me like the why this image is not good, and if you are a professional designer, what is the problem of this image, etc. So these type of the situation um is the LM judge based evaluation or auto evaluators is very, I would say like now in a very good stage or very widely used in the language base of the product developments. Like you can see a lot of like LM judge models are doing a very accurate job of that. However, in the multimodal, like image and video generation field is still in a very early stage. It's only just because like telling the contextual vision information is so difficult. So the challenging part is how to get alignment on what's the or how good how accurate is like the multimodal judge compared to the human eyes, and so that part of like the alignment distance, like I would say you really have to put more effort in both like industrial academic wise to really fill in the gap over this aspect. And there are of course some of the tricks on doing that, something like you can do different persona, like just the example I was providing, either we can say like the for amateurs will have one aspect, and then for professionals will have different aspect. And the benefits of that is actually rather than we have to only counting on fixed metrics that were predefined, because it can be open formed answer, so it can be is able to tell us some of the area or some of the aspect that we have not designed at the beginning. So that is actually open a lot of like good user study possibility, and can help us a lot in capturing a lot of nuance and different directions for the model development. And yeah, so of course like the I would say the benefits of the auto evaluator or the next generation evaluation is that it is reproducible, it is versatile, and it will be much faster, accelerate the time to market rate for Gen AI features. Yeah, and this is kind of like my last slides, and just would like to give a very my I would say the ideal case of what a Gen AI product development lifecycle puts quality into the mind should look like. So it's also kind of like a good summaries of the presentation today. So the expectation is that we will start with the product design, where we put the quality and safety gate guardrails at upfront rather than only doing the adjustment in the end. And we will also put like the impact assessments, and we will need to include like different stakeholders, not only just leadership and the engineer, but also like designers and ethicals and legals and users into all consideration, so we can have a comprehensive expectation of what a successful product will look like. And then at the training data set part, and how do we put like the ethical concern, we'll need to making sure we do deduplications and diversity sampling, making sure that the training data set is fair or have good distribution, because like if the training data set is biased, and it will be very hard to expect the model output to be fair. And also do some data minimization or filter out the quality, the bad quality, and also like the harmful samples, so making sure that our training data are clean. And also during the whole development cycle, we will need to define like the evaluations metric, something like either use human or automatic judge to the whole process, and we'll test with realistic prompts to simulate what the user will look like. And we will also need to align with the user experience and not just benchmarking, just not just compare with other, like different models, but to really have a mind of like what's the user actually wants. And then it's like the after the model has been like put into the stage, and we will need to put like the feedback loop, sorry, and that part is like productization. It's like right before we're doing the process of like the pipeline integration. We need to use the exact same quality and safety criteria as we design, so it was actually very, very important to build a transparency and trust for the whole team that we are using the same criteria for development, same criteria for product shipping. And of course, in this aspect, we need to put like the filters, either the input filter and output filter, to making sure like the harmful or controversy input and outputs never being put in. And then once we finish the part for design, training, evaluation, and productization, the very last part after we put the product launch into the product. And that's also the part very important, is like collecting the actual user feedback. And this happened after the product deployment. And sometimes we also have like red teaming to observe the situation to avoid the catastrophic harm to the system. And for the also user feedback can be used as a source for training data sets in the future, because it can serve as continuous improvement work. And something like, I know a lot of like conversational AI, they put like the human reinforcement learning by using the human feedbacks as a new model development. Yes, so this is kind of like the summarizing of my presentation today. And that is like a little bit more linked if you want to know more a little bit about me. And here's my LinkedIn QR code. And I also start to write some like blog posts about like the Gen AI fundamentals and responsible AI, and like the career development, etc. So like feel free to connect and follow as well. Yes. So I see like question
Yeah,
from.
we have a question. I'm gonna stop sharing your screen in a second, because I want them to be able to see you for a little at least. And so I see that we have a question. What is the role of a product manager and quality check in the Gen AI life cycle?
Yeah, it's actually in this part. Um, actually, I would say like the product management is very, very critical in this aspect. It start from the very first beginning before it start to do the data collection, the design for the PRD, like the product the what is like product requirement document is by work driving from the PMs, that they're defining what is like the criteria for like successful models, for successful products. So
Sorry, can you stop sharing the screen so we can see your face?
okay, uh,
Yes.
let me see how I can start. Oh, I just want to point it out that like PM role is in like this whole life cycle. That's for product
I
design,
see.
evaluations, and feedback, productization, etc. Okay, let me see how I can stop sharing the screen. Okay, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Uh,
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. This was amazing. We are so glad that you came in and talked about this, because you know what? Like, I think one of the really awesome parts of this talk was you really did give us a step by step of the design aspect of it, because oftentimes I think we end up just in general, when we're talking about it, we only talk about like one aspect of it, right? We'll talk about just the fairness, or just the data sets that we're touching. But this is truly like, I love that within an hour you gave us like a version of like the beginning, like the entire development life cycle. So what do you I have my personal question is like, what do you see as the future of like Gen AI products? Do you think that more companies will be streamlining this version of uh life cycle that you've presented towards us?
Yeah, I would actually thinking that's like, if my personal opinion, like, the um kind of like the quality control and those type of something like the harm, just like harm or red teaming of that aspect is
Right.
actually going to be more and more used for all of the genetic production. So now I have been seeing like some of the small company they provide those type of service or they are specialized and doing those kind of the aspect. So I would say like in the future there could be some of the smaller scale companies they don't have the enough resource to doing all those type of the quality evaluation themselves that they might counting on some collaboration with like some other company they are specialized doing this aspect. So because as I mentioned, like some of the like auto evaluation tools, they can be very difficult, will require a lot of effort to have a good alignment with the actual user feedback. So it might be some company that are specialized doing those work and they can gain more collaborations. Yeah.
I see
So
we have
yeah,
another.
I also see a very interesting question about what's the role
Yeah.
of QA team shifting from ML to
I
Gen.
think that's also what I'm asking too, right? Like it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what do you see as
Yeah,
the future? Because it seems like that is what I hear less and less about like traditional machine learning. I always hear it about in the context of, well, Gen AI. So,
yeah, I was like first maybe before we're saying about ML to and Gen AI, we should say like I would say like the QA is will be shifting more from just like the product team or just doing the software to
right.
more about like into the core model development or product development cycle because like it need to be really aligned close with the actual kind of like development of the model. And the aspect for ML to Gen AI, I think I have one slide about like the three different as types of evaluation. So something like the ML classifiers where we just doing the scoring or classification that is more like traditional base of the method, but more for LM judge or multimodal vision question and answer model. And that could be the future goal for that because that will provide more comprehensive, like free form of the answers that can like really like automate or speed up the whole process.
And so that's another question. This could be our last because we are a little bit over time. How do you take care of hallucination checks and mitigation with Gen AI?
Yeah, I would say like the it is an interesting problem because like hallucination is sometimes in depends on different product. It might have different definition or not necessarily means it's a bad thing. Something like if for a language models, if it's like designed for like a bot conversation or like a virtual friend, something like that, and their hallucination might be good and they might need some hallucination and the part for the image field. And sometimes hallucination means like creation.
Right.
You just get more diversity on that. So only for those specific definition area where it require very good accuracy. For very good like high consistency with like the user inputs are the fields where hallucination is something that's like need to be taken very good care of. And then I'm not like the specific as like expert in uh, the evaluation metric for those aspects, but something like the perplexity score, basically checking that the consistency of the output over different times, and then trying to seeing that like how if like different type of generations are all having the same answer rather than just like having a different version of the answer, that could be like one way of doing the evaluation on that. But I'm pretty sure that there's like more ways of doing that. I think the challenging part is that it is hard to have like a ground truth or something accuracy to compare with, but we really have to count in on the output with the model itself.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow. That, no, yeah, I think oftentimes what it becomes is like, where in the process do you stop it, right? Do we stop where the hallucination, in particular, like for language models, right? Like, do we let it kind of happen so it looks like people are really having a conversation, or do we stop and make it completely accurate from the beginning where it sounds a little bit robotic at the end, but it is accurate, right? So, yeah, thank you so much for being here. This was such an amazing conversation. I love talking about this. I really would love for you to come back and tell us what you're doing in the future in terms of like where you are in the process of all this and all the changes that you see. Yeah, so Thank you so much again. Also, we mentioned the IoT Day speaker last times, and this time we showed you the list. Please go to Business School of AI on LinkedIn to check out the entire list and the live stream links as well. Rebecca, once again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone for joining us. Another great
Mika, did you show the
conversation.
schedule? You mentioned the list. Did you show the schedule?
Yeah, I did show the schedule.
Right
I
at the
could
start.
show it. I could show it again. Yes, so if you want everyone without leaving, this is the schedule. Um, so I could show this, and yeah, this will be our IoT Day Women's schedule.
April 9th.
April 9th. And yeah, we kick off at 9 a.m. PST and we end at 4:30 p.m.
No,
PST.
we'll actually finish by 5. 4:30, we'll finish up with some discussion.
Okay,
Open
great.
to audience. Yeah. Okay. Thank
Amazing.
you.
All right, everyone. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. Thank you once again, Rebecca. That was
Thanks for
amazing.
having me.
Amazing. Yeah,
Thank you so
awesome.
much.
And yeah, please join us again in the future. All
Bye
right.
bye.